Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Southern Needs Podcast, the show where I talk about books and only books and everything book related. And today I am joined by Mr. Greig Watts. Greg discovered his love for songs back in the 1980s, the moment the iconic keyboard riffs of Axel F. and New Song hit his ears. From then on, he was hooked, scribbling down his own songs and daring to dream of one day becoming a successful songwriter, and nothing was going to stop him from chasing that dream. But Greg's story didn't even end with hit records. Expanded his career into publishing and mentoring, he discovered a new passion, helping others achieve their own dreams. Whether it's guiding new songwriters towards success, coaching his daughter's football team to victory, or inspiring creatives through, I thought I had a sneeze, through mentorship, Greg thrives on building people up. So today he's here. He's going to share a little bit more about his love for music. He's going to kind of share a little bit more about his writing career and that. And we're just going to do kind of a new, unique thing today. So, Greg, thank you so much for taking time to come on the podcast today. I'm looking forward to hearing your story and welcome to Southern Reads.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here.
So, you kind of have a long profession in doing songwriting, and you also been kind of it kind of has advanced into you coming out with a book. Share with me a little bit about just kind of how this all started out for you and kind of the backstory behind you becoming a songwriter.
Yeah, I guess I had music around my house from very early stages. My parents had a record player. My older cousin was bringing in his records. My parents also ran a youth group, so I just had music everywhere, and I guess it was almost like part of my natural life that music was there, and I guess I loved it. And in some ways, I just wanted to know more about it and wanted to get into that as well. I remember we also had a keyboard. So I used to then sit and play the keyboards and learn how to do it. Just, I think when you're surrounded by it that much, it's just part of something naturally. So I then started to look at how I could do this and how I could actually write songs. I guess I didn't sit down and think can I write songs? I just started to do it. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about songwriting. Share with me kind of how songwriting is and the process it takes to create a song. And is it the same? Because I know that you've also come out with a book since
Yeah.
this your whole career. What's are there any similarities or differences in writing a book versus writing a song?
Similarities in that it's creative. You have to write things down. You have to think out of the box. You have to come up with ideas. I'd say a book is a lot bigger, a lot longer. You need to think of, maybe you need to plan it a lot more because there might be 15, 16 chapters of what you're going to talk about. Whereas a song is sort of one story. I guess that's one way of summing it up. Is song is one story, whereas a book is usually a set of chapters, which may be one story. It may be a set of stories that make up a big story in that sense. But actually, of course, songs also have music as well as words and stories. So to sit and write songs, you need to learn, have, be able to play an instrument as a starter, to be able to hear and write a melody and to hear and write words, lyrics. So I did that on my own at first. Actually, I think songwriting can be a lot more collaborative than book writing because actually now I've progressed and I've realized my strength is more on the lyric and the melody. But actually, when I work with others and they are really good producers or really good musicians, that's when we write really great songs because we combine and collaborate. Whereas with a book, it's much more about telling your own story or telling a story. Um, so that's there's similarities, but also quite different, I would say. So,
So kind of doing a little deep dive into your book. I know that you came out with a book called Keeping the Dream Alive. Share with me kind of the backstory behind what inspired you to decide to take a break from music or kind of step into this new world of being an author.
so again, I'll go back to these stories. So for many years, I wrote songs for other people. And when you writing songs for other people, you there as an artist, you're telling their story. So their story, you won't need to listen to them because they need to sing the song. It needs to be their story. So you listen and you're writing for them. Whereas the book, first time in 15, 20 years, it was like, oh, this is actually my story. I can tell it. And I guess during COVID, when everyone was shut down and we were all thinking about legacy and what do we leave the world because it was a big moment, I started to think I need to tell my story. So, and partly as well because I had kids. I've got 17 girls, twins who are 17, but then they were 10, and I was thinking, what do I leave them? So I started to think, well, I wanted to tell them the story of how I got into music and a bit of my life story. And I started that, and of course, after a while, we all went back to work. So I didn't finish it, but actually later. I started a mentorship. I started to teach people about writing songs and the business side of writing songs. And I realized that again, I went back to my story, and part of the book should be a guide for songwriters. So, in some ways, it's my autobiography in um, growing into music, how I got into music, all the mistakes I made. But then also, it's a guide. So, teaching you how not to make the same mistakes and how to get there quicker. So, it was a sort of natural transition, really. I was just ready to write it. The timing came, starting to think of the bigger picture. And I didn't stop songwriting altogether. I still do write songs sometimes and I still do mentoring, but in a way, it felt like I needed to tell my story in a full basis. And it's called keeping the dream alive. I'm a big dreamer. And one of the things I do is try and share and lead other people in following their dreams. So songwriting was a dream for me. I followed it. Book writing became another dream, so I followed that. And hopefully, in the book, I can actually help other people follow their dreams too.
So when it came to releasing the book, when you were writing it, what was for you the most difficult part?
The editing, I'd say. So writing, I mean, the first part was just telling stories about my childhood and how I got into music and how I got, there was lots and lots of stories. That was easy. The finishing is quite hard because then you had to find time to make it into a shape. So I actually saw an advert which sort of said, write your book in 30 days, paid for this course, and he helped with the structure. He showed me the structure. I had all the content in my head, but I just needed the structure and almost a push. And actually, one of the things he did was make me accountable. So go and write the book, and if you don't write the book, you have a consequence or you have a reward. So I gave myself a reward of if I finished the book by a certain date, instead of me going and working on in Spain, I could have a holiday in Spain. And I managed that. So I finished the book. I was accountable. And I guess that was it really, in the sense it's then it was ready to actually it was ready and it was almost dumped out of me. I kind of released all the content. Then the hardest bit, like I said, was the editing, where you have to go back over it and check all the language and check all the grammar. And so I used a program for that he'd recommended. But it took a long time to edit, which so that took months and months. But actually, at the same time, once that was done, I then got it edited professionally as well. So they changed quite a few of my things where I do things like big exclamation marks, and they took a lot of that out to make it more professional. But for me, the hardest bit was editing the grammar, making it shorter sentences, so it wasn't just long paragraphs of writing, making it more reader friendly.
When it came to the publishing process, how did you go about publishing it? Did you go through a traditional publisher or did you go through self-publishing to kind of have more of that creative and more wide range control over your own work?
I kind of did a mix of both. I am a music publisher, so in a way, I know that songs need a publisher and things like that, but actually publishing your first book on your own is kind of a bit of a minefield, I'd say. So, doing anything first time on your own. So I paid for some assistance to someone, someone that actually helps publish books. So I helped them I paid them to help me get it onto Amazon, do the cover. I'm not I'm not very, I am creative, but I'm not very good at art. So someone help me with the cover, someone help me with the formatting, got all that done, and then they help publish it and launch it. I think next book I'm writing, I will look for a major publisher or a bigger book publisher because I think that story now I've had sort of a number one bestseller with this one, I can go to a bigger publisher and ask for help with that. But first time is almost like, as I said, you don't know how to do it, so you're following your nose and seeing. So you need guidance, really. So.
So far, with the book being out, how what's been the overall critical reception that you have received so far from people that have read the book?
Really positive so far. So songwriters read it and it helps. I think anyone who can read a book that tells them how not to make mistakes is good. They like the storytelling element, they like the reality and the authenticity. It's quite comical. I've also had people read it who aren't songwriters, and they kind of say it's a really good guide for it's a good motivational guide for which is what I'm trying to teach as well. There's a business mindset and there's a motivational mindset to songwriting, to finishing songs. So I've had pretty good reception from it as well so far. What I need is more people to read it actually, because people that read it like it. But actually, the hardest thing is marketing it and getting more people to find it. So.
For you personally, do you prefer being an author or do you prefer being a songwriter?
I'd say an author now. If you do ask me 10 years ago, definitely a songwriter. But I think now I'm enjoying the storytelling, like and telling stories and telling stories about my life and lessons and things like that. So I'd say definitely an author at the moment.
Was there any thing that ha kind of happened to you during the publishing process, or just any part of this process that was kind of it caught you off guard, or something that was just like, oh, I didn't really expect it to be like that? Or was there anything when you were creating the book and releasing it that something had caught you off guard?
Um, I guess just how many levels there are because you've written the book. You have to edit the book and you have to edit the book again, and then someone else has to edit the book, and then you have to do the cover and the formatting, and you have to get it all right on Amazon, and you have to get all the everything lined up and a release date. And you don't want to release it at a certain point because there's other books coming out, so you don't want to be behind certain other big books. So just the practical steps. Again, when you release a song, you put it on Spotify. There is a few practical steps, but it's just like in some ways it felt like pressing a button and you go up. But whereas with a book, it was to get it ready, felt like there was a lot of practical steps. And I think also I guess I wasn't used to that. Going back to songs, I've released hundreds, thousands of songs, so it becomes easy. Whereas the first book you ever do is a tough step. So in a sense, I'd always advise get some guidance the first time. Second time, hopefully it'll be easier. But
When you were writing the book, who were some of your biggest inspirations or people that you looked up to that really helped you in the writing process, and how they were able to kind of influence you on your writing journey?
um, I guess actually the people that are in the book are the stories that people are about that the book's about. My grandfather is in there. He told me to reach for the stars and reach for the moon. I might catch a star on the way down. That's he's a dreamer and he's told me to dream. So he's one of the biggest influences in it. My parents always let me sort of follow my dreams. Songwriters that were around me that encouraged me all the way through as well. Book people who've written books. What I liked was biographies of sports people or athletes or songwriters or artists, music artists. So I've often read their books and taken the inspiration from those. Being again storytellers, people who are good storytellers make for me good writers and good authors. Because if you can, life seems to be for me about if there's a good story, I'm interested. Same as with TV and film, I'm interested in listening to it. So, in a way, the biggest influences are the people in it. The guy who course I took was a guy called Joshua Spragg, and he's a life coach, I guess, and coach is not just does book writing, but does all sorts of things. And he was very inspirational, and he led me through a process. It was all by email, but actually he really did help. So I give him a lot of credit for the actual leading me through the process as well. So
Now, looking ahead in your for the future, do you plan on writing more books in the foreseeable future, or has this been a thing of like, I've done it, I've had this kind of being experience, I'm gonna focus kind of more on songwriting, or where do you see your writing journey going forward?
I'm already some like 16 chapters into my next book, which I'm basically just going to try and finish this month when it's about Eurovision, which tells the stories of my 18 Eurovision entries that I've had. So each chapter is about one of the songs. I was sort of trying to write a how to win Eurovision book, but it's turned into just the stories that I haven't won yet. And I think it's actually there's enough stories in there to get it out. So I'm enjoying that, finishing that off. I have got two more ideas. One is about songwriting and neurodiversity because I've come in across that a lot, and I've got a lot of that in my family. So I'm working on something for that. That might take a bit longer because I need to do more research and things like that. But and also I do football coaching, and there's a very big connection between football coaching and managing songwriters as well. So I wanted to do something that links the two together and is more about motivation and life as well as the songwriting style. So I would say there's definitely books in the planning, and there's one book that's nearly finished. So
To anyone listening, if they have gone through, or and maybe they're wanting to write a book for themselves, but they don't know exactly how to begin or where they exactly start, what advice do you have for them of how they can go through the writing process smoothly?
I think the first part would be just write in a way. I think a lot of people think about doing things and they spend so long thinking about it, they don't actually do it. And I've found with songwriting and book writing, this is the connection. It's about a flow. So once you start, kind of dump the content, dump the information, dump it out, and also find that you're telling stories and there's a part of your brain that you've told this story from. And once that story's out, it actually unlocks this other memory that's behind it, which wouldn't have happened unless you'd told the story. So it's triggers. That's it. So I would say first thing, just write it. Just write, start writing. Then you've got some content. And then I would say find the structure. And if you can't find it online or can't find it somewhere, find someone to help you find the structure, the chapters, the beginning, the middle, the end, the meaning of the story. I could recommend this, Joshua Sprague. I think it was $99. It was really worth it in that sense. It wasn't a lot of money at all, but actually I had the creativity, he had the structure. And there's loads and loads of people out there who have that kind of structure. So I would say write it out, release it from your mind, get on with it. And then once you've got most of it out, start looking to how you finish. Because creativity, you also need to finish. If you don't finish, no one will ever hear about it.
For you personally, what's been the biggest achievement or biggest thing that you are most proud of?
Probably having my children, actually. The two, I've got twin girls. It took 7 years to get them. And actually, there's a big story about how that happened at IVF. And I'll probably tell that in a book one day. So they're the biggest achievement. And they're 17 years old now. But I guess if you mean business or, life achievement success, I've had 18 Eurovision entries in 11 years, 11 consecutive years. So I've never not been in Eurovision since I started to try to be in Eurovision, which is a big achievement for me. Um, and lots of people come to me because they want to get into Eurovision now, so I can help them do it. So lots of successes along the way, lots of failure along the way as well. But I think the biggest success is that. And actually, I'm still here and I'm still going. So there'll be more. So,
Where would you like to see yourself 10 years from now in your career?
oh, I'm 51. So starting to think about retirement probably. Although I love creating. So if I can still be writing books because I see book writing as helping people. So again, the first book is very much about helping songwriters. And that's really rewarding when you are able to see people succeed. I know some people want to succeed themselves, but my strength comes from developing others. So I want to continue to develop others. I want to see my mentorees, kind of like my children, to go further than I've ever gone. That is, a real dream of mine. And actually, I also want to help people like I have been to follow their dreams because I think we only have one life and people don't go for their dreams. And actually, really, if we've got a dream, we should follow it. So, 10 years' time, hopefully, I'm further along the dream. I've won Eurovision. I'm able to guide people more. And I've written another 5 books by that point.
Well, Greg, I appreciate you so much for taking time to come on the podcast today to share your story and to showcase the journey that you have been on and really have been able to achieve. I think it's really inspiring to see how far you've come and all the accomplishments that you have really achieved. For anyone interested in reading the book, if they would like to also to keep up to date about what you have going on in the future, where can they go to learn more information and where can they go to connect with you and follow you as well?
So the book's on Amazon. It's called Keeping the Dream Alive, and it's by Greig Watts. Very simple to find there. I'm Facebook or Instagram, Greig Watts, GreigWatts. You'll find me there. And my company is DWB Music, so www.dwbmusicgroup.com. Always happy to speak to people and help guide and see if I can, do something for passing forward any of my mistakes that I don't want you to make. So yeah, so always free to be contacted.
And I will put all of his information in the description box below. I will put his social media, his website will be down there. So feel free to just check the description box to find that information out. Feel free to follow the podcast on the socials. You can reach out to me on Instagram and TikTok at Southern Reads. Feel free to also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Noah's Podcast. And feel free to just go to my website, noahspodcasts.com, to learn more about this show as well as the other podcasts that I do. There you'll find links to my socials, where the links to where the podcast is available. So feel free to go check that out, find all that information there, and I'll make sure to put all those links in the description box as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your day. Be safe, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Southern Reads.